Good morning, everyone. And let me say something that might genuinely change the way you think about getting older on your own. Because what I'm about to walk you through today is not really what your doctor told you at your last checkup, and it's definitely not the kind of thing the mainstream health world wants you spending too much time thinking about. So, if you're a man past 60 living by yourself, and this happens a lot, you're watching this because you're worried about your father, your husband, your brother, someone you love who lives alone, then, just give me the next few minutes. I think it's going to matter. Here's where I want to start, and it's a little uncomfortable. There's research out of the National Institute on Aging showing that men over 65 who live alone face something like a 45% higher risk of both physical and cognitive decline compared to men who live with a partner. That's the headline everybody quotes. But here's the piece almost nobody talks about, and it's the part that actually changes everything. Within that same research, there was a smaller group of men still living alone who had quietly built 5 specific habits into their lives. And those men didn't just catch up to their married peers, they pulled ahead. Strength, memory, heart health, mood, all of it ahead. So today, I want to walk through those 5 things with you. Not in some rigid checklist way. I'm just going to talk you through them the way I would a patient sitting across from me in my office. And I'll tell you now, the last one, the one we end on, is the one that surprised me most when I really started digging into the research years ago. It's also the one I see older men getting wrong most often. Not because they're not trying, but because, frankly, nobody ever explained it to them properly. Before I get going, I do want to ask you something, and I mean this sincerely. I read the comments on this channel, every one of them. So if you would, drop your age down below and tell me, are you the one living alone right now, or are you watching this on behalf of someone you care about? I like knowing who's actually here with me. It changes how I think about what to make next. I'm Dr. Julian Throne, by the way. I've spent better than 20 years working with older adults, in clinics, in surgical settings, watching what decline really looks like up close. But also, and this is the part that keeps me doing this work, watching what it looks like when someone thrives instead. So let's get into it. I want to start with something that doesn't get nearly the respect it deserves: sleep. Not just sleep in general, the architecture of it, the actual structure of what happens in your brain overnight. Most people, including, honestly, a lot of physicians, don't fully appreciate how much this changes after 65. It's not just that you sleep fewer hours, the structure of your sleep itself shifts. You cycle through light sleep, deep sleep, REM, and it's that deep sleep stage where the real repair work happens. Growth hormone release, cellular repair, memory consolidation, all of it concentrated there. Here's the part that stopped me in my tracks when I first read it. Researchers at Harvard's Division of Sleep Medicine found that men lose somewhere around 60 to 70% of their deep sleep capacity between ages 40 and 70. By 75, a lot of men are getting almost none of it, even on nights they'd swear they slept a full 8 hours. And then you add isolation on top of that. The National Sleep Foundation has data showing men living alone report meaningfully worse sleep quality, less of a sense of safety at night, irregular routines, and evening cortisol that has no social buffer to bring it back down. This isn't just about feeling groggy the next day either. Chronic deep sleep deficiency in older men has been linked to a 36% higher risk of Alzheimer's, according to work out of UC Berkeley. The reasoning is that deep sleep is when your brain runs its waste clearing system, the glymphatic system. Think of it like a dishwasher that only runs at night. Skip that cycle enough times, and proteins like beta amyloid and tau, the ones tied directly to Alzheimer's, start accumulating. I had a patient, Harold, 70, retired accountant out of Portland. Harold insisted he slept fine, fell asleep easily, stayed asleep 7 hours. Technically true. But when we actually ran a sleep study, his deep sleep was almost non existent. He was cycling through shallow sleep the whole night, waking up foggy, flat, just not himself. We made 3 changes. moved his dinner 2 hours earlier because eating close to bedtime disrupts that deep sleep architecture pretty significantly, dropped his bedroom temperature to around 65 to 68 degrees. There's research from the University of South Australia showing that range specifically supports slow wave deep sleep in older men, and we added a morning walk, mostly to anchor his circadian rhythm, which, as it turns out, feeds right back into nighttime sleep quality. 8 weeks later, he told me it felt transformative, sharper mind, actually wanting to get up and engage with his day instead of just getting through it. One small addition that helps a lot of my patients, magnesium glycinate, around 300 to 400 milligrams, taken about 45 minutes before bed. There's clinical research out of Iran showing it improves both how quickly people fall asleep and how much deep sleep they actually get. It nudges your nervous system from alert and stressed into safe and restorative. Pair that with going to bed and waking up at consistent times, even on weekends, and the effect compounds. Now let's talk about something connected to that, but different: morning light. I know, go outside more sounds like the most generic advice in the world. But stay with me, because the actual mechanism here is more sophisticated than people realize. Researchers at the Salk Institute found that getting outside in natural light within the first 90 minutes of waking directly regulates your circadian rhythm, your internal 24-hour clock. And after 65, that clock starts to drift the way an old watch loses its precision. When it drifts, cortisol spikes at the wrong times, testosterone production drops, sleep quality suffers, inflammation creeps up. Here's the piece specific to men living alone. University College London found that socially isolated older men had noticeably more disrupted circadian rhythms than partnered men, largely because they'd lost the external scheduling cues another person provides: shared meal times, conversation, routine. When you live alone, you have to build those anchors yourself, on purpose. I think of Raymond here, 73, retired electrician, Knoxville. Came to me exhausted, low mood, just not feeling like myself. Blood work was unremarkable, heart was fine. But Raymond hadn't been outside before 10 in the morning in years. Coffee, TV, dim light every day. We made one change: 20 minutes on his back porch every morning, right after waking, coffee in hand, no phone, no television. Within 6 weeks, he said he was sleeping better than he had in a decade. The biology behind it: morning light suppresses melatonin at the right moment, triggers a proper cortisol awakening response, and sets off a hormonal cascade touching everything from insulin sensitivity to testosterone rhythm. Pair that morning light with a bit of movement, even just a walk, and Stanford research suggests you get something like a 60% bigger circadian benefit than either habit alone. Let's shift to something I think is genuinely underappreciated. And this one's about strength, but a very specific kind. Most people think of muscle loss in aging as one uniform thing. It's not. Your muscles have two broad categories of fiber. Slow twitch fibers handle endurance, walking, standing, posture. Fast twitch fibers handle speed, power, the explosive stuff. Catching yourself when you trip, getting up off the floor, lifting a grandchild, carrying groceries up the stairs in one go. Here's the fact that, almost nobody's doctor explains to them. After 60, men lose fast twitch fibers roughly 3 times faster than slow twitch ones. Karolinska Institute research found that by 75, some men have lost up to 40% of their fast twitch fiber population, not weakened, gone entirely. This is part of why falls get so dangerous as men age. It's not purely a balance issue, it's a reflexive power issue. The instant you start to trip, it's fast twitch fibers firing in milliseconds to correct you. If most of them are gone, that correction just doesn't happen fast enough. Standard advice: walk more, stay active, does wonders for slow twitch fibers and almost nothing for fast twitch preservation. What actually works? based on research out of McMaster University, is resistance training done with what they call intentional speed of movement, meaning you push or lift with deliberate force, even with modest weight. That brain to muscle signal specifically recruits and preserves fast twitch fibers in a way slow, casual movement just can't touch. Walter's a good example. 69, retired military officer, Colorado Springs. Walked 4 miles daily, religiously. Excellent cardiovascular fitness. Then he tripped on an uneven sidewalk, and it shook him. When we tested his reactive balance, his fast twitch response was clearly the weak link, not his fitness. We added 2 sessions a week of bodyweight resistance work, nothing extreme, but done with deliberate speed, squats where he stood up quickly, step-ups onto a low box, wall push-offs. 3 months later, his reactive balance had improved by a clinically meaningful margin. He told me the ground felt like it was on his side again, which, I still think about that phrase. 2 sessions a week is genuinely enough, by the way, not 5, not 7. Focus on compound movements, squat patterns, push and pull patterns, and do the effort phase with real intent. There's a concept called anabolic resistance that explains a lot of what older men experience without quite understanding why. After about 65, your muscles get less responsive to protein. Picture a door that used to swing open easily and now needs a real shove. University of Texas Medical Branch research found men over 70 may need up to 50% more protein per meal just to get the same muscle-building response a 30-year-old gets from an identical meal. And here's the cruel irony. Most older men are eating less protein than they used to, not more, because appetite drops. Cooking for one feels like a chore, and social eating fades. Because appetite drops, cooking for one feels like a chore, and social eating fades. Men living alone are hit hardest by this. Research from the AP Foundation found men living alone consume roughly 31% less daily protein than men living with a partner. That gap is a major driver of sarcopenia, age-related muscle loss, which affects something like 45% of men over 80 and is directly tied to falls, fractures, and loss of independence. George comes to mind, 78 former football coach, Baton Rouge, watched himself shrink gradually, shirts fit differently. Couldn't open jars anymore. Stairs left him winded. He figured that was just aging. It wasn't. It was fixable. We restructured his meals around one idea: spread protein evenly across all 3 meals instead of loading it into dinner. Research in the journal Clinical Nutrition backs this up. Distributing 30 to 40 grams per meal beats the same total eaten in 1 or 2 sittings. Distributing 30 to 40 grams per meal beats the same total eaten in 1 or 2 sittings. So George started with eggs and Greek yogurt in the morning, chicken or tuna at lunch, salmon or lean red meat at dinner. 4 months in, his grip strength had measurably improved. He was opening his own jars again. Said he felt like himself. One pairing tip: combine protein meals with omega-3 rich foods, salmon, sardines, or a good fish oil supplement. Washington University School of Medicine research found omega-3s directly counter anabolic resistance, essentially loosening that stuck door by reducing the low-grade inflammation that blunts muscle signaling. And if you're doing the resistance training I mentioned earlier, getting 30 to 40 grams of protein within 2 hours afterward amplifies fiber repair specifically in men over 65, according to Maastricht University research. These two, strength training and protein timing, are probably your single most powerful pairing. Okay, now the one I promised you at the start, the one I think gets the least attention relative to how much damage it actually does. And I want to be really clear here. This is not me telling you to feel less lonely as some kind of mood advice. This is hard biology, cellular biology, and it's some of the most striking research in all of gerontology. There's a meta-analysis in the journal PLOS Medicine, drawing on data from over 3 million people, that found chronic loneliness and social isolation raised the risk of early death by 26%. They compare that effect size to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. 15 every day. That's what isolation does to the aging body. Here's the mechanism, and once you understand it, you'll understand why this is the one I lead with at the end. Researchers at the University of Chicago, led by neuroscientist John Cacioppo, identified something called the loneliness transcriptome. Essentially, chronic isolation switches certain genes on and others off. It ramps up genes tied to inflammation and immune overactivation, and it dials down genes tied to antiviral defense and tissue repair. And it dials down genes tied to antiviral defense and tissue repair. Your body shifts from a maintenance and growth mode into a defend and survive mode, and it just stays there, burning resources, aging faster at the cellular level. Specifically, loneliness accelerates telomere shortening. Brigham Young University research found lonely older men showed telomere shortening equivalent to roughly 5 to 8 additional years of biological aging compared to socially connected men the same chronological age. 5 to 8 extra years written right into the DNA, and men face a particular version of this problem. University of Michigan research found older men tend to have dramatically fewer social connections after retirement or the loss of a spouse than older women do, largely because men historically relied on their partner as their primary, sometimes only, social connector. Women tend to maintain broader, independent friendships. When a man loses that one central relationship, he can end up in a kind of social poverty he doesn't even have language for. Thomas, 77, retired engineer, Cincinnati, lost his wife 4 years before I met him, kids scattered across different states, sharp, self-sufficient, proud of his independence. But he was averaging fewer than 2 meaningful social interactions a week for over 3 years. His inflammatory markers were elevated like a man a decade older. Sleep was poor, appetite was down, he'd lost 11 pounds without trying. He kept telling me he was fine. He wasn't. We didn't prescribe medication. We prescribed social contact specifically and intentionally, the way you'd prescribe anything else. He started going to a free weekly woodworking clinic at a local hardware store. The woodworking wasn't really the point, the connection was. 6 months later, he'd regained 7 of those 11 pounds as lean muscle. His inflammatory markers had dropped meaningfully, and he told me, "Doc, I forgot what it felt like to matter to people." The research gives a fairly specific target here, published in the American Journal of Public Health, somewhere around 3 to 5 meaningful social interactions a week, in person, by phone, video call, whatever, with people who know your name and actually care about your answer when they ask how you're doing. And frequency matters more than intensity. 5 short check-ins through the week protect you more than one long conversation because your nervous system needs consistent, repeated signals of safety, not occasional ones. And here's the thing, this one connects to everything else we've talked about. Social connection regulates cortisol, which supports your circadian rhythm. It makes eating and protein intake a shared pleasure instead of a chore. It lowers the evening stress hormones that wreck deep sleep. It gives you motivation and accountability for the strength training. It's not just one factor among 5, it's really the foundation the other 4 sit on. So if you take just one thing from everything I've said today, let it be that. Your relationships aren't separate from your health. They are your health, encoded in your genes, showing up in your blood work, written into the length of your own DNA. I want to close by talking to you directly, man to man, doctor to patient, one person to another. Living alone does not have to mean living at a disadvantage. It doesn't have to mean decline or isolation or feeling invisible. Everything I've shared with you today isn't a verdict. It's more like a map. It shows you where the risks actually are so you can move around them with some intention. Morning light, proteins spread across your day, protecting your deep sleep, training those fast twitch fibers with real intent. And hardest but most important, staying genuinely connected to people. The men I've watched thrive into their 80s and 90s. They weren't the ones with perfect genes or the most money or even the best doctors. They were the ones who decided, sometimes stubbornly, that their life was still worth investing in, that it wasn't too late, that every morning was a fresh biological opportunity, not a countdown. You are not too old to fix your sleep. You are not too old to build muscle. And you are not too far into solitude to reach back out towards someone. I've watched this play out again and again across thousands of patients, and I'm telling you, with everything I've learned doing this work, the best chapter of your story might still be ahead of you. If something in this video landed for you today, let me know in the comments. Tell me your age. Tell me which part hit hardest. Tell me about your own Raymond or George or Walter or Thomas. I read every comment, and honestly, they shape what I make next. I'll see you in the next one.